Push My Passion JumpStart session. Today, we're talking to one of the phenomenal women. She's an author, she's a speaker, she's a John Maxwell certified coach and trainer. She's a pastor of CJC at Midrand, and that's none other than Pastor Mantsha. A lot of us know as Pastor Mantsha. Welcome to JumpStart, Pastor Mantsha.
Thank you for having me, Tracy.
Yes, thank you very much for also having me at your house.
You're welcome.
It's really good to finally visit you. Okay, please tell us a bit about what you do. I've just, covered a brief overview of what you do. Please just tell us more about what you do.
Okay, I'm a pastor. Now I think primarily that's what I am.
Yeah.
As you said, I pastor the Church of Jesus Christ. It's called CJC in Midrand. Actually, we celebrated our 1 year anniversary on Monday.
Yeah, I saw the pictures on Facebook as well.
And beyond that, I also just serve in the broader body of Christ as a minister, as a pastor or preacher. I write as well.
How many books do you have now?
Six.
Wow. Wow. You?
And I coach. That's another thing that I do. It's hard
Coaching.
So I do life coaching, but mostly I find that I do a lot of coaching for entrepreneurs.
Oh.
So I help people build their businesses.
Nice.
So that's what I do.
That's very interesting. Have you always been this great?
Yeah.
Like when and how did you come to know that this is, your passion and your purpose in life? This is the path you should take. This is what you should be doing.
So it was an evolution really for me. With the preaching, how it happened was that when I was a student at university, I was asked to preach. And after that, I actually realized that I love preaching and I'm good at it. So then, but even prior to that, I had always been very interested in the word. So I was a keen student of the word, even before I was born again. So I always studied the word, especially the Old Testament. I found the stories quite fascinating. I know that does not sound like something that
a preacher should be saying.
No, yeah. So then so with the preaching, that's how it happened. As soon as I realized that I'm good at it and I had always had the interest, then I started working on it intentionally. Then with the coaching, I think it was just a function of my work. I'm an engineer by profession. I worked as an engineer, worked mostly in projects, and then when I finished that, I did management consulting. And in management consulting, the bulk of the work that you do is help people with their businesses. It was more corporate and not necessarily your small enterprises. And then I worked again in government with a lot of contractors. I worked in consulting again with smaller entrepreneurs. Yeah. And then when I stopped working full-time, I worked for an incubator and I was really working with micro businesses. And I had a natural ability to just help them, encourage them. And that's how I ended up with that type of work, with that coaching type of work.
No, that's very interesting. I read a book where the author said that you're good at it does not always mean that you're good for it. But I think you're good at it and you're also good for it. How did you?
So I think that's actually an interesting statement. It's my first time hearing it. So I think for me, it's not necessarily that's the only thing that I found I was good at. I think there are also a whole lot of other things maybe that I'm good at that I could not pursue.
Yeah.
So in a way, I always talk about the place where your passion and your money making meets, because that's not always the case. Sometimes there are things that you're passionate about that will not necessarily be income generating. But for me, I'm not a trust fund baby, so I need to make money.
You need to make money.
So at least
just like a whole lot of us.
Yes. So at least with this one, it generated some income, but it was also my passion.
So we spoke about this earlier. The JumpStart series is more about inspiring people using other people's stories. And I find that you have a lot of stories to tell. I see this in your books. I've read 2 of your books, Failure is Not Final, Money 101. And I find that you have very interesting and inspiring stories that you incorporate in your writing. I've also listened to your sermons at KEF. You also include a lot of inspiring stories there, and some of the talks you have done, even on entrepreneurship. And I think I remember you did one talk at KEF about life after university. You spoke about a lot of issues that relate to finances. So even in that, you include a lot of stories. And there's this particular story. There's this particular story that I read in your Failure is Not Final book. I think it was the second book, where you spoke about how you got fired from your job. And what is so interesting to me right now, and I think it's a story that a lot of people would want to hear, how did you move from being fired to being the fired up everything that you are today?
So, actually, probably that experience of being fired is one of the most painful experiences that I've been through. I was telling someone that I had always thought that losing my mom was a very difficult experience. But I find that being fired is a different type of pain. Because when someone dies, you can't blame yourself. I mean, the person died.
Yeah.
But when you get fired, you're always looking at what did I do that was so wrong that it led to my being fired. Because being fired is not the same as being retrenched. Yeah. When you're retrenched, it means the job has ended. Yeah. When you're fired, the job has not ended. It's just something you that has ended wrong. In the company. Yeah. So for me, to be honest, it was a very painful time for me. But I knew as well that my time as an employee was over. I just didn't have the courage to end it.
So God, you see, Christians
say that. I don't agree with it.
Just did it for you.
I don't agree with that. I mean, everyone that is in my life says, Mantsha, you would never have left employment if they didn't fire you. Yeah. I personally, that's not how I see God. I don't see God as a God who will get you fired because you don't want to go. That's not my experience of him. That's not my relationship with him. So I got fired and I had to stand up. I didn't have the option to sit and say I got fired. Yeah. Also, I got fired at a time when I knew I didn't want to work, so I had to make other things work. But I must tell you that after getting fired, I did take a job. And I took a job that paid me 25% of what I used to earn. Sure. And I worked for 6 weeks.
So I couldn't survive 6 weeks.
So I actually remember I was earning, I think, 25,000 in that job. Sure. And one day I went to speak somewhere for 30 minutes and I got paid 25,000. And that's the journey that I'm excited. I said, I cannot work for 1 month and get paid the same amount of money that I get paid for speaking. No, then that's how I decided to leave. So, but funny enough, what I didn't realize, and one of the ladies that I used to work with told me that every time when we got paid, I used to complain so bitterly. And I don't remember that. And that's how she remembers me. When she met me, she said, yo, you used to talk about how much we were paid peanuts. And you can imagine the other people were happy.
Yeah, 25,000.
So it was a mistake to work there, but maybe mistake is wrong because that job is actually one of the reasons why I still continue to get projects in corporate that I get now because of the experience that I had in that 6 weeks in that job.
What lessons have you learned from that experience? Because I believe that whenever in life you come to a point where you feel like you are stuck, if you look at that experience in retrospect, you realize some of the things that you learned from it. What lessons have you learned from that experience of being fired and that journey of picking yourself up from those?
I think my number one lesson is don't overstay. I knew in August that my time was up. I actually spoke to one of the directors and told him that I should leave. And I allowed other people to convince me that no. But also, you get comfortable. As getting a salary is very comfortable. You know that you can do certain things. So when you want to go out on your own, that security is not there. So I think number one is it's don't overstay. When you know that your time is up, actively work at leaving. Don't just stay and hope that something will come up from nowhere. Then the second thing I think that I learned is every experience is necessary. In as much as when you say that it was God, I dispute it. Deep in my heart, I also know that it is God. Yeah. Because I actually never knew that there's a world of people that either get fired or get pushed out of their jobs or feel like they have no option but to resign. But now that it has happened to me, I find that even in my ministry, I'm able to minister to those people, and I wouldn't have known if I had not gone through it. And I think even when someone tries to explain it to me, it's not the same. I mean, I remember one day actually here in this house at 12 midnight, I started cleaning, and I was here with my sister when I was going through the process of being fired, and I was here with one of my sisters, Madira, and she laughed because she had been fired before, and she laughed and said, "You remember when I tried to explain to you how it feels like to be fired and you didn't understand? Look at you now, cleaning the house at midnight." So some of the things, I'm not saying that to be a preacher you have to go through everything, but because already God knows the people that you're going to minister to, God already knows your audience, and He knows all the things that you need, in terms of your preparation to be able to minister to those people. So I the type of person that I needed to minister to, I believe I needed to go through that. So I absolutely appreciate the experience. I don't want to lie to you. I know that I wouldn't have written as many books as I have if I had been working. Failure is not final itself, is a product of that being fired. So there are a lot of lessons. I could never finish them in one sitting. But
Sure.
I appreciate it now, but I promise you when I was going through it, I was saying, Eloi.
And I think a lot of people feel like that when they experience experiences like that, when they lose someone, when they lose a job, or when something happens in their lives that make them feel like they are stuck. What is the role that other people played in you being able to move from being fired to the fired up person that you are today?
I like that fired up person. To be honest with you, I have some of the most supportive family members and friends that anyone can ask for. I mean, just something that any person that is fired worries about is money. How am I going to keep on living the way I'm used to? But from friends that would literally give me cash, to friends and family that would open opportunities for me. Like most of my speaking engagements that I've had, even projects that I've had, would be friends and family members who say, "I know this opportunity, go for it," etc., etc. So for me, I know that, I tell quite a number of my friends that if they had not been there, this journey would have been unbearable financially. But it is what it is now because of the support that I've received. And the funniest thing is, some of the support comes from corners that I never knew a support me. So people, a person that would call you, tell you about an opportunity, you've never asked them, and for some reason when they see that opportunity, they think about you. Some of the things, there are even small things that at a time when I was working, maybe they wouldn't have been so significant, but a person is traveling overseas, they see shoes, they buy them for me, they see dresses, they buy them for me. So even though I don't work anymore, and in most times I don't make the level of income that I used to make when I was working, my standard of living hasn't dropped. Actually, sometimes I feel like my standard of living has improved. And it's because of the people that have been in my life. And I know that a lot of people who find themselves in my situation don't have the type of story to tell. Most people will tell you that people will abandon you when you're down and out, people will not take care of you. I've honestly had a very different experience. And to be honest with you, I know that it's maybe a bad thing to try and link the two. But I believe it's also just part of the seeds that I've continued to sow. To say that a lot of times when I've done a lot of things for free, a lot of times when I've gone out of my way to do certain things, and as Christians, when we read and the Bible says Jehovah sees, Jehovah knows, it's honestly really true. I've seen that in my life.
Wow. What would you say then, having had that experience with your family members, your friends, and some of the people that you say you've never met before, who are telling you about opportunities that are coming up? There are people who are watching this right now who are thinking that, in order to be successful in life, you've got to be self-made. What would you say to someone like that who has isolated themselves from other people in the name of becoming self-made success?
So it's a myth. There's no such thing as self-made, because you can't change your diapers. You can't feed yourself when you're a baby. You can't take yourself to school. So life and the way God created us as human beings, He created us to be interdependent. And I was actually thinking about this this morning. to say if you walk alone, it means you're not going far. If you are going far, you have to walk with other people. So the pressure though that a lot of people feel is because they feel unsupported. And when you feel unsupported, it's very easy to quickly then say, I'm on my own. And sometimes when you do that, you isolate yourself and you think you're protecting yourself from hate, but you're actually limiting yourself. So what we need to accept as individuals is that human beings will hurt us. Human beings are not infallible. They make mistakes just as much as we make mistakes. So teach yourself to forgive so that you can continue with the relationship. So when I speak about the fact that people support me, it does not mean that I never get hurt. Some of the relationships are not painful. It just means that I pick myself up and tell myself, Mantsha, for you to go where you want to go, you need these people with you. You can't isolate them and say, no, I don't need you. You people are bringing nothing but pain in my life. So for me, once you have a view that says it's people that are going to open doors for me, in the same way when I have opportunities, I'm going to open doors for other people. And it does not necessarily mean I will open doors for the people that have opened doors for me. So you may open doors for me, but tomorrow when I open a door, it may not be for you, it may be for someone else. So for me, really, the notion of even the people that claim to be self-made are not self-made.
Yeah, that's true. That's very true. I get what you're saying. The fact that you can't change your diapers means you cannot be self-made. But another thing that I have noticed is that people don't seek for help and they, expect people to automatically know that they need help. And then at the end of the day, they claim that they didn't get, support from certain people. But they never went out to look for help. Speaking in the preaching sphere is a male-dominated sphere. What has been your experience as a woman speaker and as a woman preacher?
I've actually had a lot of favor in the speaking and in preaching. I think I was, or I am, one of those people that just happened to be the right age when something was breaking. So now we live in a time where there are lots of women speakers and lots of women preachers. But there was a time where there were very few. So, and I was also there, maybe not from the beginning, but somewhere at the beginning. And I also happened to, so when it comes to preaching, because the two for me are not the same. So when it comes to preaching, when I was at KEF, there was a very bold move towards, we need to get more women preachers. So there was an intentional exercise to get us to be preachers. So then I benefited from that. So it also helped that I was interested and I was bored. But I think in a different era, I wouldn't have had as much exposure. So I had a lot of exposure from a young age. Maybe, I don't know if it was young, but I was 17. So from that age, and then when I joined Pastor Temba's church in LGTG, he also just used me quite a lot on the pulpit, whether it was emceeing or preaching. Then when I joined Change, Pastor Nzo, it was the same thing. He used me quite a lot. So what Change did is that Change also gave me a lot of exposure to other people. So what happened at Change is Pastor Nzo would have a lot of other pastors coming to Change. And he had given me a very strategic slot, which at that time I did not recognize it as a strategic slot. Like you were saying earlier, we realized a lot of things in hindsight. So my job at the January convention was to do declarations for 5 to 10 minutes every single service. So for about 5 to 10 minutes, I would stand up in front of thousands of people and do declarations. And sometimes when the speaker is late, they would then say to me, Mantsha, take 10 minutes, take 15 minutes. And because I'm a preacher and because I had been prepared by KEF and I had been prepared by LGTG, when they give me 10 to 15 minutes, that for me is enough for a sermon. So I would, if it's 10 minutes, I would do a sermon, I would do a prayer, I would get everybody energized, and a lot of people got to see my ministry based on that. So when I started doing this at Change, I would get probably 20 preaching invites just from those 5 minutes. And to places I did not know, with pastors I never met, who today I have relationships with because of that. So that's why I say I had a lot of favor. But I also know that whatever opportunity they gave me, I took very seriously. So people laugh. When I used to do the declarations, I would take a scripture, write it. That's how I wrote my first book, How to Pray the Word of God. take a scripture, write the declarations and say them, and then write them out. Then I would record myself on my phone saying them. Then when I drive to church, I would be listening. Then I would say, no, this word is too difficult. This declaration is too long. So I, even though it was 5 minutes, I was so diligent in my preparation that another person, if you hear me saying a joke at church, you think I figured it out on the stage. No, this is not my voice. So and she says jokes. She says jokes so easily. No, I work on them. This is my craft.
I get the secret.
This is my work. So I'm sure. And the way that I tell it, and then I say it, then I pause a little.
To
and then
then
I give you just to laugh, then I continue. Then you thinking, wow, she's so spontaneous on this thing. I work at it. It's my craft. It's my job. It's my calling. It's my purpose.
Wow. That's wow. Okay, no.
I'm telling you my secret.
I get it. Like I get it. I get it. And I know that you also empower some young speakers. I myself am one of the people who have gleaned from your well of wisdom. You remember the time when I was still studying myself, and I had, you gave me some of your time and spent time with me. And I know I saw you at Carefree, calling some of the young ladies there. Would you want to share just your experience of that mentorship relationship that you've had with some of the people, the speakers you're mentoring right now?
So part of my calling, as I understand it, is to assist other people that I feel are called similar to me. And I've had the pleasure of, as you say, mentoring or working with other ladies or even guys, other speakers who are upcoming. I think for me, it's just to share my knowledge, and also one job that I take very personally is to just be that voice of wisdom, and I'm not talking about in terms of the craft, but in terms of other character related things and other just little habits that if you're not careful as a speaker, they can stand in the way of who you are as a person.
What would be those?
So just little things, like if you are like us, they consider you a preacher, they call you a woman of God, they're falling over themselves to serve you. Without realizing it, you become prideful. Without realizing it, you become arrogant. Without realizing it, you expect people to serve you. So my job is to remind you that you're not a woman of God. God doesn't have a woman. We are all servants here, and you need to always occupy that place of humility. So those are some of the things, and other things is once you are a public figure, also people start to make a lot more sexual advances towards you. People are interested in you. So how do you handle all of those things? And sometimes when people hold you in high regard, they will not talk to you about things like that. So when you see that people are interested in you and you don't have boundaries, or you're just like, but I'm not the one that's asking them out, they're the ones that are all over me. So I see that as also part of my responsibility to say, let us also look out for some of these little things that make it not to be as pleasant for people to listen to us and to hear what God says through us.
No, thank you very much. Is there anything you would like to say to the young people who are aspiring to become speakers, who are looking up to you? They get inspired by your messages, they get inspired by the life that you live. Because one of the things I really appreciate about you is that the way you present yourself on social media, it's not like we can see that you're a human being, basically. Because other people tend to present this all perfect person who always goes to gym, they always eat healthy, they always do the right thing. But we see that you are human, and I think that's one of the things that really draw a lot of young people to look up to you and to follow the kind of work that you do. What would you say to them to inspire them, to give them a jump start that would push them towards achieving their dreams and their goals?
So I think when I started, I was under so much pressure to be perfect first. And unfortunately, I'm one of those person who's endowed with mistakes. So
Who is it?
so there was no way that I could ever start if I waited to be perfect first. So and I think that's probably why I try to present myself to be clear that God does not use perfect people, but you just have to have a willingness and also to constantly work on yourself. So for young people out there, or even old people who are called by God, who want to pursue a particular purpose, who have something that they need to live for, or that they know they must achieve in their lifetime, my advice to them is just start where you are with what you have. One of my favorite books is Acres of Diamonds, and it talks about this guy who's looking for diamonds everywhere, and he dies trying to find diamonds, and then he sells his farm, and the person that he sells his farm to finds the largest deposit of oil. So he had gone out looking for diamonds,
Left the diamonds
and he had diamonds in his own farm. So most of us, when we think about the things that we want to achieve, we don't ask ourselves, what do I have? We always focus on what we don't have, and we're trying to get it. Rather, look at yourself, look at your natural abilities, look at your gifts. I mean, I was looking at another lady when we went to vets with her. Her name is Joy Pala. She's doing gardening.
Yeah, I saw your post about
She's so famous when she's gardening. And I'm sitting there thinking, how do you become famous for gardening? And that's it. She looked at what she had.
Wow.
And that was what she had. I mean, she was on SABC3, she was on Radio Metro. She's doing the most, as you guys say, with gardening. So for me, don't look at what you don't have. Look at what you have and start with that.
Okay, no, thank you very much, Master.
Thank you, Toby. Thank you for inviting me. I feel like it's a
Okay, how would our viewers interact with you, your social media?
So Facebook, mantsha.com, Twitter Mantsha @Mantsha, Instagram mantsha.peha, Pheeha, and what else? LinkedIn Mantsha Peha.
And your new YouTube channel?
Oh, YouTube Mantsha Peha. Actually, everywhere I'm just Mantsha Peha.
Yeah, so please, guys, subscribe to her channel.
Yes, please.
And then we'll have another JumpStart session next time. But until next time, yield to the push of passion.